Yeah, and you and I were talking literally this week. I was following up. I always love to do a kind of a circle back around check-in call. And Caden, I got to tell you, man, not only have I grown so fond of you, we're always laughing because I've got a nephew named Caden, Kyle's. Matter of fact, he's engaged now. He's 18 years old. And I remember when you jumped into boot camp, I'm like, man, I love Caden so much that I was already drawn to you. I'm like, dude, I like Caden Coots. And so when we were talking this week, because you've now graduated, you've been out of the boot camp, how many, probably a month now, maybe?
Yeah, a little over a month.
Yeah, a little over a month. So, and I love to just check in and see, okay, where are you at? Are you still on track? How's the progress? How's your results? And we had to jump on this call. And I want everybody on the podcast to be encouraged because, Caden, your story needs to be shared as an inspiration because here's what people think. Man, you've got veterans that are used to doing a lot of business, that their business has dropped off. You've got veterans that are thriving. You got new people that are struggling. You got new people that are thriving. And I want everybody to hear this. Caden Coots in West Texas, like rural Texas. You're not like even in Houston or Dallas. Like you're in West Texas, right?
Yes.
Where are you at? Where's it at?
Yeah, so I live in San Angelo, Texas, and
Yeah,
then
so it's not like 10 million people in the pop. I mean, like it's San Angelo, right?
yes, sir.
And here's the thing: you got into the mortgage business 5 months ago. I want everybody to hear this. 5 months ago, and so that was in May, June, July, and in August, you funded 2 units. In September, you funded 3 units. As we're rolling into October, you already have 4 units in the pipeline with a potential fifth to make it five for a month. And your volume is continuing to grow. And what I love is you were an athlete in high school. You were a coach, you were a teacher, but you were really a coach. And then you got into the mortgage business. And in 5 months, you've been able to just see significant growth. And I think it's just an honor to be on the journey. I know you took for you, it was like, man, I have no option but to succeed. I want to get in the boot camp. And man, I'm so glad that we've been able to link arms. And I feel so inspired by you and encouraged. And Caden, for people who don't know you, tell us your story, man. Tell us your story. How'd you get in the mortgage business? Why'd you get in the mortgage business? And tell us a little bit about that journey.
Absolutely. So, grew up in West Texas in Midland, Odessa,
Yeah.
home of President, George Bush, father and son. That's kind of our little staple out here. And that's where our branch is located, which is about 100 miles away from where I live, which is in San Angelo.
Yeah.
And it's great out here. People are awesome. So I was born and raised this way. Football was a huge part of my life. I was fortunate to have a really successful high school career. If you've seen Friday Night Lights, I went to Midland Lee High School, the school that Permian hated. I grew up hating Permian,
Yeah.
and it's just good old school like that. And had the benefit of getting to play college football and go to school and not just jump right into the oil field like every other male in my family. And my dad always told me, he's like, man, find something you love and it won't feel like work. Football had been really good to me. And I came out of college, got done playing and still had a chip on my shoulder and jumped right into coaching, and had a great tour, got to live in. It's funny, like people that are in Dallas, Fort Worth, or Houston, or live along I-35, they never go like west of Weatherford or Austin, But for those that kind of are familiar with Texas, I got to live in first job was in Eastland, then I was at Abilene Cooper, and then all the way up into the Panhandle, northeast of Amarillo into Pampa, Texas. Took
I
my
love it.
first offensive coordinator job up there, and then
Yeah.
had moved to San Angelo to do the same thing at San Angelo Central High School, which is one of the staple programs out here in West Texas. But when I was in Pampa, this is where the whole mortgage business thing started. We bought our first house.
Yeah.
And this was right after, Snowmageddon and right after COVID and all that kind of stuff. And so we got to take advantage of, like a really good buying situation. And we bought our first home. It was great. It was awesome. And my loan officer was one of my colleagues' dads. And I just kind of really became infatuated with the process then.
Yeah.
even though I was doing what I loved. I always kind of just started staying in tune with what the real estate market in our little community of Pampa, 20,000 people, what was going on there. Just because it was just like an escape, really. And then that year in April, I called an old coach of mine who is now doing real estate. And I was like, hey, man, like, I'm interested in this. So I started asking questions then. And this is 2 years before I ever got into the business. And, we just kind of tabled it right there.
Yeah.
And we moved to San Angelo, and it was arguably the worst time to buy a house. It was April of 2022 when everything was going nuts, and the Fed's raising rates, and then it's still super competitive. Da da da. Da. And I became really infatuated with how dynamic the whole thing was. And
Yeah.
last summer, in my gut, I was living every coach's dream, and I was coaching 6A football. I love San Angelo, Texas. I loved our kids. I loved what I did. Having that responsibility and that pressure on a Friday night, bring it, let's go. And then something in my gut, I'm a man of faith, so I firmly believe it was the Lord was like, hey man, like you need to press into this interest that you have, and was having trouble sleeping. My wife Ashley was super supportive, and we prayed through it. We researched and did all that kind of stuff. And I actually made the call a year before I even got into the business. I was like, all right, I'm doing it, but I've already committed to this next school year, so we'll hammer that out.
Yeah.
And couldn't tell anybody at work. I barely could tell my family because it's still kind of old school out here, so word travels if it gets out. And so I finally got to tell everybody when our season was over and around Thanksgiving time. And then I got licensed in March and really started working it in May. And then June 8th was our first call on the boot camp. And so
Yeah.
here we go. We've been
Yeah.
journeying ever since. So I got rolling at the end of May. That's when I
Wow.
really started going.
Yeah. Well, brother, and I love your story, man. It's a there's nothing like having the ability to follow a passion and just I tell people all the time. They say, Steve, how do I push through good and bad times? And when it's a calling and that, man, this is the step I'm supposed to take, we just live different. How do you live? You live that there's no plan B. There's always only a way through, not a way out. And Carl and I were talking about this yesterday. What do we think makes the difference with somebody, whether they're successful or not? And I think number one, you've got to have such a resolve and a why and just a grittiness. And that's what I love about your football experience. You know what grit is, and I'm not talking about grinding. I'm just saying the grittiness of, brother, I'm all in. All my chips are on the table. And there's only one way through this thing. And that's what I saw you do, man. Every day just show up. And hey, talk about this. So here you are. You've been a successful coach. You've been love the kids. You're transitioning into mortgage. Where'd you get started? Like you've had very quick success, but it hasn't been easy. So talk about it when you first got started, and maybe even how did you find focus? How did you know what to do? How did you show up every day and do it? What did you do when you felt the reluctance to make the call? Talk about some of that.
Yeah, so I remember just by listening to the marketing animals and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff on the podcast. I remember like saying, okay, I've got to make a list of agents that I've got to call. At the
Yeah.
time, I didn't have access to software to see whether or not they were qualified, but I was like, who do I know or have a
Yep.
previous connection with? Where can I get started? And I remember sitting down. I had about 20 names that I was going to hit first,
Yeah.
and this was in May. And I remember making my first call. I could tell you her name and her email address right now. And I just remembered being nervous, but I also remembered hearing, you and Carl and everybody say like, offers minus no's equals money, right? And so it's like, all right, it's time to put myself out there and start meeting people and recruiting people to partner up with and to do business with. And
Yeah.
that I remember that first one, and there's been hundreds and thousands ever since. But it was just the leap of faith to say, okay, you've done the research, you've listened to these guys, you've listened to the testimonies. All right, let's roll up the sleeves and let's go get some. And so started there. And then fortunately, like I had about 3 weeks of prospecting and warming up people that I knew that were in the
Yeah.
business
Yeah.
and before I got into the boot camp, and then really started to develop the structure by your leadership and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, you want to know how I got started? I took a big breath and a big drink of water and said, all right, let's get some. And, here we go.
Yeah.
And, it's messy. It's like the other thing, you say it all the time and it rings true. Anything worth doing badly, just get started. Right.
That's
And so
it.
that was it.
That's
I was
it.
like, I got to go. Let's get
Yeah,
started.
yeah. Hey, well, so talk about some of the structure that's helped you. So, like, what are so you talked about? You got a list of agents at first of the ones you knew. Hey,
Mhm.
and listen, make it easy on yourself. And this is what I'm talking to everybody who's listening today. Don't like it doesn't have to all be cold calls. Some of you have been in the business long enough. You've looked back at the last 2, 3, 5, 10 years of the people that have been on the listing side, the buy side. Then go in and through Redder. I know in our loan officer CRM, you can look it up, MMI. There's lots of resources, but get a list. And if you're new, maybe the people that are in and around your lives already, and then just figure out which ones are qualified. Do 8 or more buy side transactions. And then when you run out of that list, then go get more. But don't start with the cold first. Start with the warm or the hot or maybe warm introductions. I love title companies. They're so good and making introductions to qualified agents. And so, okay, so talk about structure. We got a list. We're identifying who's qualified. What does your activity look like in a week, and what's some of the structure that has kept you committed to doing the right work?
I'd say the biggest thing that really helped me in the boot camp was the time
Yeah.
block. Say
Oh
this,
yeah.
my time is borrowed time and it's scheduled for this. My schedule's dictating what I'm supposed to be doing right now,
Mm,
right? And so just blocking that out to say, okay, if I check these things off in
yeah.
an orderly fashion and I show up and execute, that's going to be enough. And so the
Mm,
structure of that is key. It was for me, and it has been up to this point. So when making the calls, like I didn't have a lot of Tuesday calls to make early on
yeah.
because, but I am that person that was brand new. So it's like, all right, if I don't have anybody who is under contract where I can touch the lead and touch the partner and
Yeah.
offer the business, I better go recruit more partners so that I can have work to do on Tuesday. And so
That's
you
it.
double down on Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
And early on, it was half of my day. It seemed like was coffee meetings that I was working to set up because it was like I got 2 files right now, and I need 10 more. So I better go find some partners that like that. We jive, and it's going to be a good deal. But you can't do that without the structure and the list to say who do I need to call, and then the process of like how do I talk to them, how do I frog them, you know
Mm,
and
hmm.
that was super key. And even coming back into our branch, who has loan officers that have done this a long time, like
Yeah.
I've gotten to share like what we do there, and it's helped our sales culture even here, which is great for our brand, for our markets, for our business, for those people and their families. So that's been just a huge pleasure. I'm brand new, but like, hey, Caden, how are you? You've got 26
You got
applicants,
results,
right?
man. I know it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, hey, so let me recap what I heard you say. So you started with a list. You made sure they were qualified. You developed and leaned into a routine. Listen, when I did this study on the difference between motivation and discipline, discipline's number one characteristics are routine. So we work together on building a routine that keeps the right focus on the right things. And you start with personal, family, and the last one is sales, but it's the first activity of your work week. And so we did that in week number 4 of the boot camps, where we just spend the whole week building a routine that's focused on a sales consistency. See, here's the thing. You know what it is, Caden? A lot of people, especially when they're brand new, you get in and it's like, what am I going to do today versus what you've done is you wake up every day and your routine, your livable calendar says, hey, Caden, doesn't matter how you feel, bro. Wake up. This is what you're doing today. And I love what you said. You said something that your routine ensures that you did enough. Isn't that a relief?
that
Like I spent like 15, not 15, probably 12 of my years waking up half the time saying, dude, Steve, did you do enough? But when you know the numbers of how many partners you need to get how many relational leads, like that's the math part we talk about. All that anxiety goes away. And what I love, you being an athlete, look, you didn't want to show up and play football every day and practice and bang heads, but you knew it's Tuesday. I got to go do it, whether I feel
Tuesday
like it or not.
is
That's,
some
that's
right.
it. Get some. I love it. I love it. Hey, listen, how many calls a week? Like, give me an idea. And I know we only have a couple of minutes left, but how many outbound calls are you making a week? What's your target for appointments that are you keeping? Like, what are some of the things
Right.
you're striving for every week?
So to close for a month, which is where I'm at right now, it was 86 calls, give or take one or two. But it was 86 calls, and
Yeah.
then appointments set versus appointments kept. Like I think I needed to fulfill 5 appointments a week in
Yeah.
order to be on track for that. You
Yeah.
know, and early on it was 6, 7, 8, 9 appointments, and then there'd be a dry spell where it's like three, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
well, what's the net average? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I kept tracking. Like 4th of July comes up and everyone's gone for 2 weeks or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But are you continuing to just put these people into your calendar to continue to pursue them? And then when they no show, offering a little bit of grace, the same way the good Lord does for us, and to say, hey, it's all good that you no showed. Like, let's do it again. I had
Yeah.
a really qualified agent. She is in Odessa, no showed me twice, but I got to go speak to their team, so she had no choice but to sit there and listen to me. And then we connected, realized we knew a lot of the same people, even had classes together in college, and then now we have at least a relationship, and
Yeah.
you work off of that to keep working on building that partnership. And so
Mm.
being able to hear no and say, that's fine, they just don't know me yet.
Yeah.
Like that's helped me a ton. And whether I'm too dumb to know otherwise, so I just choose to believe that and then keep rolling.
Dude, I love it. Well, hey, and it all go. You'll find what you're looking for, man. I truly, truly believe it. You're not too dumb. You've just realized that I'm looking for the right people, and a no is not rejection. A no is probably just not right now because they don't know me. If they knew what we did, that we have a process to prospect. If they knew that we have a real time referral program. If they knew we asked for the business. If they knew we touch the lead, touch the partner. If they knew all of these things that are process driven that we do on a daily basis, they would be blown away and would literally just clamor to come work with us. And man, I love that. Hey, and I love what you just said too. You averaged it because you know what you'll see. Sometimes people are like, oh man, I only got 3 this week, but you got 7 the next week. And I really am a firm believer of looking at the averages because it's the averages that drive long-term results. And so, hey, so your commitment is 89 outbound calls. So you've been able to do literally in your 3rd month, 2 loans, 4th month, 3 loans, 5th month, 4 loans with a potential of having a 5th for this month, and your volume continues to track up. And you've done it by making 90 strategic outbound calls to qualified agents and making 5 kept appointments every week.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then
Brother,
on
it's not right. It's not rocket science, man. I
it's
mean,
not
that's what I just love about it. Like we think it's so complicated, but it's not. We got to get rid of the noise and just do the handful of things that really make the biggest difference.
right. And you know what? The thing that like I just want to encourage any new loan officers out there that are listening to this. If you're targeting qualified agents, you're going after their business, look for people that are on a team. Okay. So like a lot of times in my list, I would see a team. And I could tell it was a team, just kind of how it was set up. Their name on there was a team or whatever. Go find out who is on that team, partner with them, because somebody, if that head team lead is a big listing agent, somebody's handling their buyers if they pay for a
That's
bunch of,
it.
and their name may not be in there. My point is this: like I hit a point in San Angelo where I tapped out. I'd been calling and I gotten a hold of and met with several qualified agents. And I think in the town there was only like 50 or 60. Like it wasn't
Um,
crazy, right?
yeah.
So, okay, well, who's on the team? Because I know this guy, he's killing it in listings and he only had 11 buyers. But if he has that many listings, somebody on his team is handling his buyers. So just doing the homework and digging a little deeper. And yeah, he's not listed on Redditor as a qualified agent, but we jive great and he's a young guy getting after it.
Yeah.
So as a young loan officer, don't be afraid to do a little bit extra and find some of those other people on the team as well. Qualified first, 100%. And then those people that love you and they're getting after it, you never know. They may not have been qualified agent because they did 7 last year, but they're doing 11 this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, man. Hey, and I just love you're just doing what it takes, man. You're such a when I think about success comes to people that are number one hungry, but the most success comes to the people that are the best students of the game and just continue to work on their craft. And every day, and listen, you got to talk about this real quick. When we talked a couple days ago, you told me, you said, Steve, I did it and I haven't even been able to execute it like perfectly. And I loved when you said that, because I think people need to hear, one thing is you had a burning desire, you had a massive resolve. And here's what happens, Caden. Most of the time, people are waking up and trying to make a decision daily. What you did was you set a resolve, and now you're waking up and just stewarding your decision. That's a different stance. And what I love is then you linked arms. We jumped in the boot camp. You didn't know much, but you had been a student of the podcast, student of listening to the DSP, and student of saying, "Man, I'm hearing the success. This thing works." And what I love is it wasn't even executed perfectly. It rarely, if ever, is. It's progress, not perfection. Talk about that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. There's times when, as you're learning, there's going to be speed bumps. There's going to be a weird file or a weird loan type that take away from your calendar. That's part of getting started,
Yeah.
100%. And so, okay, what I try to make sure that I do is, am I touching the lead and touching the partner? Am I at least making sure that that gets done? Are my pre-approvals getting called? Is that at least getting done? At, like, it may not take 2 hours for me to go through all that. And have I gone and tried to prospect and make connections this week? Like,
Mm,
I get completely off track and I'm like, I may not have tracked my numbers perfectly this week. I got to be better about that. But did I at least do the things that keep me top of mind, engaged with my partner that we're either in a deal with or somebody who's pre-approved? And am I continuing to go, even though I'm at my goal for, recent months?
yeah.
This can't be the end of it, like, at all. Let's keep going. So am I continuing to just press on, even if I can't track it all the time perfectly? Even
Hmm.
it was a crazy, weird week that got tied up in a bunch of meetings. Am I taking a few hours out of the week? Like you said, if people just took 8 hours of the week, their business would scale. And I don't know what your percentage is. What is it? If you take 8 hours a week and focus on sales, your business does what?
I mean, it'll literally double within, I mean, a very short order, because when most people, when you look back, the challenge is most people, if you ask them what's the number one activity you did to get the last 10 loans, they're not spending any time doing it. Man, it's significant. So, brother, I love
Yeah.
it. You're such an inspiration. And hey, listen, what we'll do, you're going to hit double digits soon. And when you do, you're going to text me and we're going to get you back on the podcast. I just want to continue to highlight your success. It's remarkable what you've done, and I love the simplicity of just running the play. And you're proof that you don't have to be a 10-year vet to have great success. You can do it in very short order, but it does take hard work. And it's not hard in that it's laborious. It's just a resolve and commitment to do whatever it takes. And so, Caden, you're an inspiration, man. Grateful to have been on the journey with you. And our time together in the boot camp is only the beginning. It's just, I love seeing what you're doing. I know you've had a coworker jump in the boot camp. I mean, it's very, very cool. So thank you for that, man. And thank you for sharing your story.
No, thank you, Steve. I wouldn't be here without you. I'm extremely grateful for what you guys are doing for loan officers nationwide.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.
I love Caden's story. And the reason I really do this is to inspire and encourage everyone who's listening today, whether your target is 4 loans a month or 15 or 40 loans a month, you have what it takes. And success is easier than you think, but it requires diligence in doing the right activity and being fiercely vigilant towards your routine and what it is you're doing each and every day, a process to prospecting, a routine that focuses on the right priorities, because order matters. Knowing the math of how much work you need to do each week to achieve the goal that you're working to achieve. Hey, and listen, if you want help with that, go to loanofficersuccess.com. There's a form you can fill out there. We're doing 8-week boot camps. It's limited to just 20 loan officers. If you're interested in it, fill out the form. And then once you fill out the form, it'll take you to my calendar. Feel free to jump on to a 15-minute call. Let's talk more about if the boot camp is right for you and how it can help you close even more loans with less headaches, with less stress, with less anxiety. What if every day you didn't wake up and say, I wonder what I'm going to do, but you wake up and say, I know what I've got to do. All I have to do is show up and show up with a great attitude. And doing that, I'll see massive results. It doesn't take years. You can do it in months. I'd love to be a part of your story. Loanofficersuccess.com, loanofficersuccess.com. Fill out the info. And if you want to jump on a 15-minute call right after you hit submit, it takes you straight to my calendar. See you.